Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how I managed to stay alive out here in Mexico. As you guys know, I've been living in Mexico for, over 5 years now. And hey, I'm still alive. So how did I manage that? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So I made a list as to why I'm still alive, and hopefully they can be something you can learn from and use when you come out here to Mexico as a guide as to how you can avoid danger, avoid the worst possible case scenario. All right, so let's just get right into it. So the police out here, that's right, the police out here are very nice. In fact, they are completely different than what you might be used to in the US or Canada or wherever you're from. But out here, the police, even though they might seem more dangerous because they're armed to the teeth, with like AK-47s or whatever machine guns they have, and all this other, high powered rifles and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, you'll quickly realize that the police in Mexico, even though in some cases might be very corrupt, for the most part, they're extremely nice and helpful, and they actually serve their purpose of, being public servants. So, if you come from the USA, in which, any interaction with a police officer could, most likely end in your arrest, death, or, at the very least, a large fine. All right. You'll be, it'll be a welcome change to what you're going to see and have in Mexico. Because the police out here, like I said, let's say that you do have some sort of infraction, like you might have in the USA, a broken taillight. Well, if you have a very, very, very corrupt police officer, what they're going to do is that they're going to try to extort you out of some money, meaning they want you to pay the fine for having a broken taillight right then and there. Okay, as opposed to the U.S., where not only are they going to give you a ticket, but again, you never know what could happen. That traffic stop could end up, very, very, very bad, or it could just be a simple ticket. It's all random. You never know. But in Mexico, for the most part, it's just simply either A, they might just be writing you a ticket for real, or B, they just want some money and they're using that as an excuse to stop you and make you pay a fine right then and there for them to let you go. And, because they're trying to do you the favor of you not having to actually get a real fine and have to go through the bureaucracy, of having to go pay it and all that good stuff, because again, it's not as easy as it is in the USA. In the USA, you get a fine and you can basically mail it in. It's not like that in Mexico. It's a lot more difficult. So that's, why that whole idea of, hey, you can pay it right here kind of exists. For the most part, what I and other YouTubers and other people out there that make vlogs and do this kind of content, what a lot of us end up suggesting is the fact that, call them on their bluff. If they're going to give you a fine, let them give you a fine and take that fine. All right. And that's it. Now, if you are not living in Mexico and you have no real legal jurisdiction, what I'm saying? Like if you're here on a tourist visa or something like that, and you have your, foreign driver's license and all this other stuff, most likely not only are they not going to give you a fine, but even if they do, there's no way for you to really even pay it. So it's a moot point. But let's say you do live here and they do give you a fine. Well, then you just, deal with it. It's not that big a deal. Now, the good thing and the positive thing about being in Mexico is that, there are very few things in which you're going to get a fine or get in trouble for or get any kind of harassment from the police, as opposed to, again, in the USA, where, you can literally get arrested for walking down the street without having your ID. The police in the USA are, again, this is the country I originate from, and I am just used to a totalitarian police officer. I remember when I was a kid, your parents are always telling you, hey, behave. Look, there's a cop over there. Hey, don't do this. Oh, be careful. And always, kind of like instilling that, danger of what a cop could be. And then as you grow up, you realize the danger that they are. I really cannot remember of any time in the US of a police officer being of any kind of help. And in fact, again, even if let's say you're driving your car and it's an old beat up truck like the one that you're seeing this footage on, my Dodge Ram, my 1988 Dodge Ram. Let's just say that something happens where, hey, you gotta pull to the side of the road because of some sort of mechanical issue. Well, here in Mexico, if there's a police officer around, they're going to stop and they're going to help you. Hey, what do you need? Do you need a jump? Do you need some gas? Do you need a push? You want me to, push the car so we can park it and get it out of the traffic's way? What do you need? How can I help you? As opposed to in the US, they basically say, all right, you got like 5 minutes to move this piece of crap, or, we're going to tow it. And so on and so forth. And, at least, that's what me and many people are used to, that the police and they're not helpful at all. In fact, again, you'll be lucky, to just leave with the fine. In many cases, again, you can get tased, you can get shot, you can get, killed, you can get arrested, so many things. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's either happened to you or somebody in which it's happened to. And most of the time, it's not fair. It's not, none of it makes any sense. And, I don't want to get into all that, but, just the laws are different here. And that helps a lot, with me staying alive, because every single time that I have some sort of interaction with a police officer out here in Mexico, I know for a fact I'm going to get out of it alive. There's no even thought that crosses through my mind in which I'm in any kind of danger. Sure, they might want to, try to extort me. They might try to scare me. They might even want to arrest me, search my car, violate my rights and all this other stuff. But the reality is that, out here, whenever they do something like that, you actually have the ability to fight them in court and win. Because again, assuming you want to do that, but long story short, it is because out here they take all that violation of your rights very seriously. And even though there are police officers out there that are corrupt, and officials and authority figures that are corrupt and might do this because they're used to doing it to people that don't know their rights, but the reality is that when they do encounter somebody that does know their rights, well, all bets are off, because at that point it's like a game of chicken, and most of the time they end up backing off because they know it's not worth it. And they know out here in Mexico they do anything. Again, if they no matter what they do that violates your rights, again, illegal search of your car without a warrant, any kind of roughing up or arrest without an actual reason of suspicion, real reason. They have to have like, hey, we've been following this guy because we know blah, blah, blah. So they can't just like, hey, we're pulling this guy over, or we're stopping this guy and arresting him just because we suspect because the way he was driving or the way that he looked. No, there's none of that here. It doesn't really, it happens. But again, whenever they do anything like that, it's their violation. Even if let's say you're in in certain places like Cancun or other places, and you come across, or Mexico City, and you come across police officers that, again, they are very corrupt. The most that they can really do is, again, maybe rough you up and steal your money. And yeah, it's up to you whether you're going to go and press charges on them, because it's literally taken exactly the same as if it's somebody on the street that roughs you up, just a random hoodlum. That's the way it's treated. But long story short, you can, exercise your rights if you want. But what most people end up doing is that if they live in an area with corrupt police officers, they just don't carry ID, don't really carry anything of value, and they just deal with it just like if they live in an area with gangsters or cartel members, or again, there's all kinds of violence and bad stuff in Mexico, just like there is in the USA and every other part of the world. Now, the thing is that most of the people that are watching these videos are never ever going to be in those areas or live in those areas or anything like that. But at the end of the day, the police are very different out here, and I am never under any kind of threat that the police officers out here can do what they do in my home country. So to me, that is one of the main reasons why I have been able to stay alive out here, because again, If I would have been the last 5 years of my life in the USA, I don't know what could have happened. You know what I mean? So, but out here, I know for a fact that, again, just living proof. I've had many interactions with police officers out here, and most of the interactions have been extremely positive. And that's all I got to say about that, where I've never had any problems, meaning, I've had police officers that have helped me, been very nice, I've had, really, really good experiences with police officers. And then the few that have been very corrupt, again, it's been easy peasy, dealing with them, so, again, knock on wood, right? Nothing happens. But the reality is that even if something does happen, I feel a lot safer out here than I would in the USA. Another really big reason as to why, I've been able to survive and live out here without any kind of problem, and it's been, again, a lot safer to live out here, has been because there are no random acts of violence. Where I come from in the USA, there are random acts of violence all the time. It's just a way of life. And unfortunately, when you live out there, you're constantly on edge for the most part, because you're just, you never know what could happen. You don't know if you're going to get shot, like randomly just shot. You don't know if, again, the police officer situation, let's not, get back on that. But like, anything. You could just be at the Walgreens, getting your prescription, and somebody comes in to rob the Walgreens. Or, again, on the street, again, just dangerous. In many cities these days, it's dangerous just to even walk and down certain areas in certain cities, just because of, again, things like Skid Row, and other, situations like that, where there's a lot of, homeless people, a lot of, dangerous. I mean, yeah, things are out of hand now, way out of hand now. But they were out of hand before I left 5 years ago. They're just way worse now for many, many reasons. And, are you kidding me? There are there's no mass shootings in Mexico. In the USA, every single day, literally every school day, I guess, right? But every day, I mean, basically, no matter, doesn't matter what you look at when it comes to the news, you're constantly seeing mass shootings, or multiple shootings, or you're seeing tons of violence. Again, towards civilians, towards the population. You're constantly seeing things like, trains getting derailed, constantly seeing, all kinds of, just things, just horrible things that are happening in the US. And it just feels so much more dangerous. I mean, I lived in the US for a good majority of my life, and I know what danger is. I've lived in dangerous places, and that is the thing. I'm here in Mexico, and yes, look, granted, I am in the safest city in Mexico, literally, all right? But I've been to other parts of Mexico, and at no point, even though I was warned by the locals and warned by many people, hey, be careful when you go to Oaxaca, be careful when you go to Mexico City, be careful. And I'm like, yes, very, very careful, extra high alert, more, careful than usual. But at the end of the day, it was very safe. I felt very, very, very safe. In fact, a lot safer than I felt in many places in the USA. And again, I would never in a million years is there going to be like a mass shooting in Mexico. And if it does happen, it's very rare. Again, the police force is not deadly. They're just, security guards with guns. There are no such thing as like kidnappings, of tourists or people or whatever. Listen, crimes happen, high crimes happen, okay? You can already know and take a guess as to what I mean. Yes, the kidnappings do happen, but it's not you. It's usually things that have to do with the cartel, and things like that. In the USA, again, anytime you get stopped by a police officer, you are in constant threat of being kidnapped and thrown in a jail cell and extorted out of your money. That's not happening in Mexico. You know what I mean? And like, again, in very few and small, minute cases, things like that do happen. And again, most of the time, it's things that you will never ever be involved in. And that kind, the whole cartel situation, outside of a few certain areas in Mexico, you have zero to worry about. That's never even a thing. You're never even going to see it ever. You know what I mean? It's nowhere on the radar of most areas in Mexico. The reality is that where these things happen, all this major violence and all this other stuff, it's nowhere near anywhere you're going to be. It's just not. and that's just the reality of it. So there's no reason for you to be scared. But in the USA, it just basically doesn't even matter where you are these days. You're at risk, of mass shootings. You're at risk of just death, constantly from a bunch of things, that are out of your control. And yeah. That's just the true reality of it. So out here, I feel so much safer because I don't have to worry about, all the excess violence that I used to have, experience on a daily basis, in a sense, in the USA. And, that's just the truth. Another way I've been able to survive out here for so long, I've been able to live out here for so long, stay alive without a problem, has been the fact that I walk very carefully. Bruh. What do I mean by that? Well, if you watch any of my videos and you've seen a lot of the streets, a lot of the roads, the way, the infrastructure is, not just in this part of Mexico, but most parts of Mexico, whether it's a very mountainous region or it's an area like here, a lot of the infrastructure is not that good. So you're going to see in some areas, or many areas, a lot of potholes. You're going to see sidewalks that are hard to walk to. Again, in mountainous regions, it's going to have like very high elevations, on the sidewalk. You're going to have to walk on the street, cobbled streets, cobbled streets or cobblestone streets are not easy to walk on. Especially streets that, are just have many cracks and have, a lot of, bad infrastructure faults. And so since out here, you primarily, walk, it's a very walkable culture out here, and people, walk, they bike and all this other stuff, it's things you got to watch out for. But even if you're in your car, yeah, you might not have a severe injury, but your car will. Your motor. If you're on a motorcycle or you're on a bicycle, you got to be very careful. When you don't be running over any pothole. You never know how deep or how bad there could be or anything. There's down power lines in some cases in some areas, and I could go on and on. So the reality is that, a lot of the infrastructure out here in some of the places is pretty lacking, and not everywhere. In some places it's great and it's amazing and better than the USA, but in other places it is lacking. And so you have to be very careful with where you walk, where you bike, where you drive. Make sure, again, the potholes, down power lines, I can go on and on. You know what I mean? There's just so many things, animals in the road, people in the road, the way that people drive, because the way that people and the things are out here is just very chaotic and hectic. And even though people are very calm and slow and, it's Mexico, things are hectic in the sense of, how people just go about their daily lives. And so a lot of times you're just going to see the dangers, even when you're driving, and you're driving around and you see how, other people, just drive. They make like a 2-lane highway, a 3-lane highway. You see people driving the wrong way on the road. You see them carrying all kinds of things that they shouldn't be carrying, and I could go on and on. It's just a constant, danger. And as long as you are very vigilant, you keep your eyes open, you're always on guard, when you're out and about. Again, you're not worrying about someone, robbing you, taking, and that's not what you should be worried about. Again, you should be more vigilant about all these other things. You know what I mean? More like, again, walking around and driving around and making sure that you don't trip and fall and break a bone. That's a lot worse than if, some random dude at the market pickpockets, your cash. You know what I mean? That's another thing. Be careful when you're out there. Don't be, if you're out in the markets, if you're out in certain areas, don't be, there's no need ever to have your ID, to have your passport, to have any of this stuff. You only use that if you're going to the bank, if you're going to certain areas or certain places, bureaucracy type buildings or situations. But the reality is that never, should you have any of these things on you. Sure, maybe a little light ID in case something happens. Again, you trip and fall, on one of these potholes and you get knocked out and people are trying to help you. And hey, they got at least some sort of ID so they can, know who you are. I mean, again, because I was told that, by a lawyer friend. They were like, because my lawyer friend was like, hey, I know you don't like to carry your ID and, you're all about that life. But hey, maybe it's a little wise to carry a little something so at least people know in case something does happen in that sense, because you're active, and so just in case. And so it's like, oh yeah, you're right. So at the end of the day, you don't have to carry any of that stuff. So really, most people out here, they got like a really cheap cell phone. All right, because again, if they take it, again, I don't want it. It's going to be an inconvenience and a hassle, but it's not going to put me out, $10,000 or pesos or whatever, sorry, and or 20,000 pesos or $1,000. It's only going to put me out maybe 100, $200, which again sucks, but whatever. And the same thing goes with other things, you know what I mean? Like again, your IDs and your very important credit cards or debit cards. Again, these are things that unless you're really going to be using them, you don't have to have them with you. You can, but again, if you're going to go through the market, el mercado, and you're going to be walking around and up against certain people, and again, you're maybe in Mexico City and certain areas like that, hey, it might be wise to kind of just be more vigilant that there could be a pickpocket or this or that. But very rarely are you going to encounter somebody, and you have to be in certain areas and certain situations, you're going to encounter somebody with a gun or a knife or some sort of whatever trying to just steal your stuff. And like I said, in some places, like in Mexico City, it's the police officers that are trying to do that. All right. So, and that's it. And if you know your rights, and not even about your rights, in this case, we already talked about that. We're just talking about just personal safety. If you're very vigilant, or just normal vigilant, you'll be fine because, you'll be aware of your surroundings. You'll use that common sense, right? And you'll be totally fine. You'll not only make sure that, you don't trip and fall, but you also make sure that, again, there's no weird situation that, someone could take advantage of you, of. Because, look, there are lots of parts of Mexico that are very, very, very safe, and you have absolutely nothing to worry about when it comes to that. Again, out here in Merida, multiple times, okay, I've seen people return not just wallets full of money, cell phones. The other day, somebody left their cash and their card, okay, and the receipt all in the bank, okay? And somebody took the cash, took the card, and then took a picture, okay, of the receipt and said, hey, look, for the owner of this, they come, claim it, that they need, the proof that they are who they are, and they get to have their stuff back. But long story short, it's very different. But in other parts of Mexico, let's say Mexico City, Acapulco, Cancun, it might not be that way. It might be a lot more, pickpockets or, corruption with the police or things like that. So again, it's just, you got to be very vigilant of, when you're walking, again, when you're driving and, certain, checkpoints, make sure you know what you're doing. All right. Again, nothing to fear. It's not like a checkpoint in the USA. It's a checkpoint in Mexico. And some of those, most checkpoints are no problem. But again, these are things that you have to be very vigilant of. All right. And know what you're doing. And again, now we're going to go on to the next reason as to why I've been able to live, managed to survive out here for so long, again, managed to, stay alive, has been seriously the fact that I know Spanish, which is very, 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 very important. It is very instrumental because you yourself, might not know any Spanish. You yourself might only know a little bit of basic Spanish. And so a lot of these things that I'm telling you, like, again, like having a certain interaction with the cop and demanding your rights and knowing all this, script of what to say, when it comes to your rights and all this other stuff, you're not going to be able to do any of that because the reality is that you don't know the language. So it's implorable. It's very important for you, again, to enhance your survival, rates, enhance your survival out here, is to learn Spanish. Again, it's not necessary. Plenty of people. I've made videos with other, individuals out there in which they have, not learned much Spanish. They get by with just minimal Spanish or just the Spanish that they have from, a Google Translate or whatever. And they live perfectly fine and they're perfectly happy and they got nothing to worry about. But for a lot of other individuals out there that, again, might be in certain situations or, again, want to, you're young and you're coming out here and you want to do certain things like, start a business and do all that. It's very important for you to know know Spanish and know your rights and know all these things. Why? Because the more Spanish you know, the more you know about the culture, the more you know about all these things, the less likely they're going to be taking advantage of you, the less likely you're going to be in a certain situation in which, it's going to catch you by surprise and you don't know why XYZ happened. So the reality is that, the people that seem to fit in the best when it comes to out here are the ones that just know things like, the real basic rights that we had in the USA. Because out here, it's all those basic rights, that are basically, your right to privacy, your constitutional right to, again, free speech, your right to travel, your right to all these things. So again, I don't want to get deep into that, but if you know all your constitutional rights, they're basically, upheld out here, as opposed to in the USA where they're not really upheld. Okay, you have to go through so many courts, and even then, it's not guaranteed. But out here, it's not like that at all. So if you know Spanish, the more Spanish you know, the better. And if you know Spanish legalese, even better, because again, that's going to help you so much more when it comes to like the bureaucracy, and it comes to, again, legal matters, contracts, your rights. Again, you're always about your rights. The more you know about your rights, no matter where you are, but the more you know about your rights, the better chance you have at survival. And again, not just survival, but the reality is that where you stand. So now that we've talked about how important it is to know Spanish, again, it's not necessary, but there is an importance to knowing it, especially if you're going to live in Mexico. But with that being said, another thing that has helped me stay alive for so long out here, especially during the first, years, the first months, the first years that I was here, and even today, even all the way up until right now today, has been the ability for me to be as self-reliant as possible. And again, knowing Spanish has allowed me to, when I first got here, to be able to just, hit the ground running. And, when it came to, like, let's say finding my first place to live, I did it myself. I just basically asked, a few people, hey, what are the websites, that I can, find the rental in? They told me what the websites are. Again, if you want more information on that, it's all on my website, where you can find out, what those websites are. But long story short, I just basically asked, what the websites were. I started looking. I know Spanish, enough for me to, be able to find the place, call the place, talk to the guy in Spanish, rent the place, and before I know it, that's it. I was good to go. I didn't have to worry. Same thing when it came, whatever. My English no so good sometimes. But the same thing when I had to do all my immigration paperwork. Okay, I did it all myself. All right, even though I got my lawyer and my lawyer friend, hey, I just did it all myself. Same thing when it came to my automobile. When I had to put all that in under my name and I did it all myself. Again, it was a headache. Everything bureaucracy out here is a headache and a pain in the butt. But at the end of the day, I was able to do it all myself. And again, by doing it yourself, not only are you self-reliant, all right, and you learn along the way, but again, things are just cheaper for too many obvious reasons. So, this is the same reason why I got the truck that I have and you're watching, the footage on right now, is simply because I wanted something in which I could fix, or have a friend of mine, again, like David, Greg, and all my other friends out there that have been helping me with the truck, all right? But something that, again, like I like to joke around and say, apocalypse proof. So, a truck in which, I can fix myself, or I can get people to just help me fix, certain things like my, me and my friends, or at the very least, or at the very worst, have to take it to a mechanic like you saw a few episodes ago where I had to fix, the whole exhaust in the truck, and I had to fix something with the radiator where I just, our capacity to fix that was limited in our garage in the house. So we had to take it to an actual mechanic to get those things fixed. Again, that's why we're back on the road. Hey! But long story short, it's the whole idea of the struggle, that I've been able to, survive out here, no problem, because I've been used to the struggle. This ain't no big thing. Have been very self-reliant, for a very long time. And that has allowed me not just to move out here, but to thrive out here. And that's a very, very, very important thing that is going to help you along the way for many things. Because again, the more you know Spanish, again, you're more self-reliant. You're able to just go do things on your own. You're not going to be reliant on other people or a company or, a service or, or anyone, or again, fraudsters or scammers. Because again, the less reliant you are, the less self-reliant you are, the more reliant you're going to be on somebody else or something else. And if you don't even know the language or don't even know anything about anything, and you rely solely on just an individual out there, they could just be frauding you out of money or scamming you out of money, and be telling you, again, selling you one thing or selling you a service or what have you, and they're just taking your money and they're not really giving you anything because, what are you going to do? And that kind of stuff. So there's, a lot of things, many things, that, honestly have been able to help me, survive for so long out here. But one of the major things, one of the main things has been, the fact that I have been very self-reliant. Look, I'll just say it. The reality is that there's just some people out there that have never eaten a cold hot dog out of the package or even taken a cold shower or been in any kind of difficult situation, and it shows. And that's the thing. Out here, the more you are used to struggle or are, aware of the struggle and, again, take this upon yourself, as an adventure, you're going to struggle, you're learning, all this other stuff. Gonna like it. I've said this multiple times. Like, I know plenty of people that have come out here, and the majority of the people that survive out here are people that have some sort of like military service, or they traveled a lot, or they just they've been out of that bubble. And so again, that helps a lot. That really does help a lot with your survival out here. And the reality of it is that you're gonna have to deal with this at one point, because this is one of the main reasons to your survival, not just my survival, but your survival is, whether or not you're going to be able to handle the struggle or not. And now, last but not least, one of the main reasons I've been able to stay alive out here in Mexico for this whole time, and, longer than I would have been able to stay alive in the USA, and this is the truth, is the fact that I have a lot better access out here to healthcare, and a lot better access to good food, organic food, real food. Again, I've talked about it many times in many of my episodes where, simply said that, when you go to the local market, the local vendor that is selling you fruits, vegetables, meat, right out of that little corner store, right out of their house, whatever, in the neighborhood, a lot of that food comes straight from the garden, comes straight from the farm, has been, recently butchered, what have you. But the point I'm making is that it's fresh, and it's not, no Monsanto, GMO, what have you type of thing. It's just the food. That's it. As natural as it gets. And from there, as you go up the chain and you buy things that are more packaged, that are coming more from a grocery store or even a foreign grocery store like a Costco, again, that's how you get back into, the food that you're used to. So like I've said many times, you kind of like really have to go out of your way to go get the potato chips and the Twinkies and the soda, because they even kind of make it a little more difficult than they do in the USA. Yes, you're going to see potato chips and sodas and all kinds of junk food all over the place here in Mexico, but it's nothing like it is in the USA, where it's just like in your face. So the cheapest food out here in Mexico is basically the food that comes straight from the tree, the raw, chicken, eggs, what have you, all that stuff, that's a lot cheaper. That's actually a lot more cheap to produce and to have access to and available than it is when you buy chips, when you buy, Twinkies, when you buy sodas, things like that. In fact, I think soda, Coca-Cola, that is like the only thing that is, unfortunately still pretty cheap, and in some places of Mexico, cheaper than water. But for the most part, things like potato chips, if you get like the natural potato chips that some guy fries up, puts in a bag and sells at the store, those potato chips are always going to be cheaper than the Lay's potato chips or the Ruffles or whatever. And the same thing goes with, Twinkies and all this other stuff. You can buy like 2 Twinkies or 2 little chocolate Hostess type things, and it's going to be like $2. Give or take, or $1.50. And then you can, at the same token, go to the local bakery and get a baked good that was just baked fresh right then and there, and it's going to be half the price. So It's just things like that, where, the more fresh the food, the more locally produced, all that stuff, the cheaper it's going to be. So you have amazing access to that. So right off the bat, even if you're extremely poor, you're just going to be eating a lot of beans, a lot of eggs, a lot of tortillas, a lot of, chicken, whatever, I don't know, the cheapest thing that's available, which is, again, all good food, where in the USA, a lot of times the cheapest thing available is, something that has a lot of chemicals and a lot of, ingredients that you don't even know how to pronounce. All right. Just like I can't pronounce, many words in English. Okay. And so, it's not just the food, but also the healthcare. The fact that the healthcare out here, again, I just made some episodes not too long ago, talking about the, access to affordable healthcare out here. You don't need insurance. You can pay basically everything out of pocket. Most doctors' visits are going to cost you, $2 to $3, or as expensive as, $50. But again, if all you need to see is just a doctor, $3 give or take, and you can go see a doctor, and the medicine is only a little bit more. In fact, most of the time the medicine is the most expensive part of the whole treatment, not the doctor. And the doctors out here are very professional. Since most doctors out here, again, are affordable, you can have second, third, fourth opinions, multiple opinions, and get the right treatment for yourself. Again, I've talked about it multiple times. A lot of the things that I've had, health issues, like everybody has health issues, nothing crazy. But one of the major issues that I've had, that was a major, change out here was my knees. My knees, they're not so good. I used to stand a lot as a chef. I used to always work on my feet, and unfortunately, my knees, there was a problem. So when I came out here, obviously they just got worse. I walk a lot, and all that good stuff, and I do exercise. So it was just only getting worse. So I needed to fix it. I wanted to fix it. I needed to figure out a solution to this. So I was going from doctor to doctor, and most of them were not giving me solutions I wanted. I did not want to have surgery. I didn't want to be taking all kinds of pharmaceutical medicines, and so on and so forth. So eventually I came to an awesome doctor that gave me a real awesome doctor, okay, that was basically a sports medicine doctor in the USA for boxers, okay, so not just some guy randomly, all right. And when I told him, and then he offered the same solutions, but then when I told him what I really wanted to do, which is, again, no surgery, no pharmaceutical meds, I wanted a natural solution. I wanted to do physical therapy. I wanted to, maybe take some natural supplements. He said, "Oh, no problem. Say no more." And he just he gave me, again, the proper treatment, and that's it. It only took like 2 doctors, really, 3 doctors to go find them. It wasn't that, like an intensive, go out of my way to, find the doctor I wanted to see. But anyways, long story short, with that treatment, I'm good. I can walk again, in a sense, I can, do a bunch of the things that I thought I wasn't going to be able to do. And even now when I have, flare-ups or situations with my knees, I know what to do in order to fix it, and so on and so forth. So, that's one of the main things that has helped me a lot, being able to, again, take care of my health in so many ways possible. The fact that, again, I get to eat better. I have so much access to real good health care. I have a lot less stress because of just the way things are out here compared to back home. I'm not stressed out that I'm going to be killed. I'm not stressed out that, I'm not going to be able to pay rent on time. I'm not stressed out about all these insane things that, just the average American has to be stressed out about. So at the end of the day, all of these things put together, when you add them all up, this is why I've been able to survive out here, for so long. I've been able to not just stay alive, for over 5 years, but I've been able to thrive out here. And again, get healthier, feel better, again, and just, I could go on, but I won't, because this episode has to come to an end. So with that being said, please, I want to give a quick shout out to every single one of you guys that has watched all the way through. Thank you so much. You're the real awesomeness out there, because that's one of the main metrics, that really helps the channel a lot, which is the longer you watch, the better it is. So thank you so much. Shout out to all of you. And with that being said, there's a lot of you guys that are not subscribed. So please, if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe. Doesn't take anything. If you've been watching all this and you've enjoyed it so far, just hit the button, please. I appreciate it. Thanks. Shout out to you. Now, with that said, I've had a lot of you guys, a lot of new guys gals, everybody in between, hit the subscribe button. So shout out to you, to all of the new subscribers, all the old subscribers, every single one of you guys out there in the audience, okay, that has been supporting me either from day one or since, right now, like 1 hour ago. Shout out to all of you. I really appreciate you guys. I love you guys. You guys have no idea, how happy it makes me that I get to make these videos and that it helps so many of you guys out there. And in turn, you guys have helped me. So again, now a super special shout out to all the members out there, all the patrons out there. Every single one of you guys, whether it's someone like Greg, that comes out here and helps me out with the truck and helps me out in other ways, or some of you guys out there that I've never met ever before, and you guys are constantly, sending me donations, or some sort of patronage, or you guys ask me a question for me to answer, or you guys are out down there in the comment section, helping other people out with information, and anything and everything in between. You guys know who you are. All of you guys out there, there's just too many to mention that have helped me out, not just throughout the years, but it's just been constantly helping me out. And now, more than ever, we're all helping each other out, because again, we're trying to build a community here. I think we are. I'm trying to build a community here of like-minded individuals, which are just, nice people, trying to help each other out. And, some of you guys, a lot of you guys want to move to Mexico, and I am just trying to, give you guys the real nitty-gritty and the truth. Mexico is going to be an amazing place to live and to build in the years to come. But as you guys already know, there's a lot of things involved in that, and it might not be for everyone. And that's why we make these videos. So with all that being said, all right, I want to give, again, a super shout out to everyone out there. You guys know who you are, all the patrons, all the members, subscribers, new and old. And with all that being said, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.